Our morning session will begin with a presentation on new and existing programs in the federal farm bill. And our presenter will be John Mayberger. He's with the Department of Agriculture Natural Resources Conservation Service, and he's the CSP program manager for NRCS. John has worked with natural resource conservation since 1981. He's worked at the National Soil Survey Laboratory, with Lower Platte and South NRD, and then with SCS and now NRCS in a variety of field offices.
Sorry if I confused you.
He's worked with the Conservation Security Program and the Conservation Stewardship Program since 2004, and is currently the Nebraska manager for these programs with the state office in Lincoln. Okay, $5. Please welcome John Mayberger.
Well, thank you. Hope everyone can hear me well. I'm going to, as John mentioned, I work with CSP primarily since 2004, but I'm going to cover a variety of the different farm bills that NRCS, farm bill programs that NRCS works with. And I will have time for questions at the end. I'll start off with the EQIP program. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with EQIP. It's a cost share program. The new Farm Bill, 2014 Farm Bill that is, which began about a year ago on February 7th, merged two programs together, the EQIP program and the Wildlife Habitat Incentives Program. And so there is now no individual wildlife habitat incentives program. All wildlife applications and considerations are merged into the EQIP program. The payment limitations have been raised to $450,000 for all the contracts entered during this farm bill. And there's a new incentive for veteran farmers and ranchers. And so they will get a higher payment rate and better rankings within EQIP as well as CSP. Okay, and that's it for EQIP. The EQIP's basically, other than that, it's similar to what it was before. Okay, there's another program, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, which is a program that furthers conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of our resources on a regional scale. It encourages partners to cooperate with producers, partners being the anything from game and parks, the NRDs, different environmental groups. And what NRCS does is the partners will submit applications for a project in their area that they're interested in. And this year we've had run a dozen or so applications through our partners. And then with the money that we have available, we rank those out and come up with what's the highest ranked applications. And those are the projects that get funded. And with those funds, then the partners are able to advertise and promote applications for CSP, for EQIP, for ASAP to address the concerns on the project. The RCP program replaces the old AWEP program, which we had around here, Agricultural Water Environmental Program, and a couple other initiatives. So those are no longer being offered. So again, our CPP program contracts and easements will those programs. I'm going to take off my glasses so I can read this. Okay, the RCPP actually offers contracts again through ASEP, EQIP, CSTP, and Healthy Forest Reserve Program. There's $100 million available through this funding nationwide, and 7% of the EQIP, CSP, and ASEP dollars go into our CPP. This year, Nebraska, I should mention Nebraska in our approved contract was given just under $3 million for that, so it wasn't a lot of money. The funding allocations for these programs, there's 25% of all the funds will go to state level projects, 40% will go to national level projects, and 35% for projects in critical conservation areas. Now I have a slide about critical conservation areas. The partnership agreements under which NRCS enters these contracts and the easement agreements with producers and landowners participating in a project with selected partners. And so again, what happens is the partners will submit requests for proposals, partner will get funded, and then they will advertise the programs, help with taking applications. The applications will come to the NRCS, and the NRCS will fund the applications through those programs to contract holders. The eligible land uses are cropland, rangeland, grassland, pasture land, and land adjacent to those areas. As far as the critical conservation areas, these are regional areas. The Secretary will allow 8 of them throughout the country. Nebraska is in one of those 8 areas. And those critical conservation areas have regional interest. In addition to ASEP, EQIP, and CSP, also PL 566, which is a watershed protection program, is eligible for applications into RCPP. Here's a map showing the region, the critical conservation areas, and of course Nebraska is located in the, I don't know if you can read it on the side, it's the prairie grasslands region. Goes from Texas on to Montana. It covers into Missouri and Iowa as well, and as you see. And that was one of the approved RCPP critical conservation areas was in the grassland area, and it was headed up by Missouri's Department of Conservation, but Nebraska is included within that. And so we will have applications for developing grassland birds with habitat within Nebraska and our lower tier counties. So again, it's a competitive process to select the applications. And I had a gentleman this morning ask about the criteria used for evaluating that. That is to be made public, and it has not been made public yet, and it will be soon. Okay, so what do the partners do with RCPP? They contribute a significant portion of the overall costs. They conduct the outreach and education to eligible producers in the project area. They'll act on the landowners' or producers' behalf if they need application assistance. They will leverage with NRCS financial and technical assistance to achieve the project goals and conduct assessments on the effectiveness of the project. Okay, so again, in these selected areas, the assistance will come through EQIP, CSP, or ASEP contracts. Okay, there's a few other provisions. The AGI can be waived. The AGI requirements can be waived if it is necessary for the purposes of the program. And down below, we cannot use the funding to cover partners' administrative costs. So we had 2 approved RCP projects in Nebraska. The Ogallala Aquifer and Platte River Recovery was the state level one that got approved. The lead partner was the Central Platte NRD. The main practices within that area will be permanent and temporary retirement of irrigated acres, and also to improve irrigation efficiencies. And again, we'll use all of the EQIP, mainly EQIP in this case, practices to meet those those needs. And as I mentioned before, the regional or the critical conservation area, the big broad one, was for regional grassland, bird, and grazing land enhancement initiative. And Missouri's Department of Conservation was the main lead partner, and our local partner would be our Nebraska Game Parks Commission. And main practices with that will be grazing management, range plantings, as well as managing for wildlife habitat. Okay, now a more familiar area for me, Conservation Stewardship Program. The Conservation Stewardship Program is a popular program, particularly in this part of the state, but it's a program that encourages producers to address resource concerns by undertaking new conservation activities and then improving and maintaining what they're already doing. Okay, we have in Nebraska 2,700 active contracts for this year. The 2002 Farm Bill, the old security program, there's still some active contracts, and perhaps some individuals in the room have them. The 2008 Farm Bill was our stewardship program beginning, and we have 1,400 of those, and just under 400 from 2014, and then also renewals. The contracts are 5-year contracts, and in the 5th year of the contract, when the contract is about to expire, so for instance, the 2011 contract holders can renew their contract if they choose to for another 5 years. And last fall we went through that and had 632 people choose to do that. As far as the acres in CSP, there's about 5,100,000. So again, it's a pretty big program within the state. And this map shows the locations, the county locations where the dollars are being spent. These are annual dollars going through as of 2013. And Phelps County is a big player, as well as neighboring counties within the program. Okay, as far as the CSP, the idea is to increase your score and increase your payment by adding different incentive or enhancement practices. So the more enhancements that you do on the greater number of acres, the larger the payment will be and the greater the ranking will be. And there's just a variety of things from improving grassland diversity, prescribed burns, silvopasture, wildlife-friendly fencing, forest land improvement, deferred crop production on wet areas is one. Conversion of grass-based agriculture from cropland to grass-based agriculture is another one. We have things for wildlife habitat. Here's an escape ramp coming out of a tank. Field borders are also an enhancement that we use, as well as pollinator habitat. And wildlife-friendly hanging techniques to flush the birds prior to the bailing process. Okay, but there's also a whole variety of enhancements, from using drift-reducing nozzles on chemical applicators, irrigation pumping plant evaluations, irrigation system automation. There's going to be a new enhancement coming out this year dealing with removal of end guns on center pivots, as well as higher intensity irrigation water management requiring soil moisture sensors that would send information to a computer or a company that can evaluate what your ET values are. That's also going to be part of that this year. So there's over 70 different enhancements, something for everyone. Okay, cover crop enhancements, that's also a new push this year across the state in Nebraska, using lagoons, cover crops for nitrogen source, high residue cover crops, just a whole variety. Using cover crops to break up soil compaction is a big one. Using cover crops to scavenge residual land has also been a priority. With our cover crop enhancements, you are allowed to graze cover crops as long as the intention of that cover crop has been met. So, and we have, depending on the cover crop, if it's to break up soil compaction, of course the plant has to reach maturity to break up the compaction before we send cattle to graze it. So check with your office for details on that. Okay, there's a CSP sign-up deadline has been announced. February 27th, the end of this month, is the deadline to sign up for CSP if you want to be considered in the 2015 contract year. And the Farm Bill reduced the total amount of CSP available acres nationwide from 12.7 million down to 10 million. And with sequestration, that's been dropped this year to 7.7 million acres. So they're just kind of squeezing it down a little bit. Okay, and also new for this year, the ASEP land. If you have ground that's in the ASEP program, an easement program, then you are eligible to put it into CSP as long as it's not part of the WRP or the Wetland Reserve Program. Okay, new for this year in CSP, there'll be an Ogallala Aquifer Initiative. We've used that with EQIP. This is the first year we're going to use it for CSP. And so areas that are in the Ogallala Aquifer, and you're all familiar with that, will have an additional chance to sign up for CSP. There's 30,000 more acres coming to Nebraska for CSP within this aquifer, and you have to just be an irrigator, and then you have to be interested in signing up for one of our water quantity enhancements. And as long as you meet those two criteria, then you're eligible to apply within the Ogallala Aquifer Initiative. Should mention at this point with EQIP, we have last year spent $8 million for EQIP practices, water quantity savings practices within EQIP. That was in 2014. They're reducing that amount to $8 million within the entire Ogallala Aquifer, so which covers all the states. So Nebraska's share will be divided amongst all the other states within that. So those dollars have been reduced. Okay, again, when you sign up is the end of this month. If you have a 2011 contract and you would like to renew it for 5 more years, the sign-up deadline for that is March 31st. All those individuals will be receiving letters so that they're notified. Okay, as far as the ASEP program, ASEP basically replaced a variety of different programs. The Farm and Ranch Protection Program, GRP, and WRP have all been replaced with ASEP. The contracts we had under the old programs are still active and will still be managed as though those programs were still new and fresh. Okay, so there's 2 components to ASEP: the Ag Land Easement component, which takes Farm and Ranch Protection Program and GRP, and then the Wetland Reserve Easement component, which of course takes the purposes of WRP. Okay, so again, the purposes are to restore, protect, and enhance wetlands for the ASEP portion of the wetlands, and also allows us to never mind. As you can tell, I know CSP more than these other programs, so I apologize for that. The baseline funding for ASEP in 14 was $400 million. It goes up through 2017, and 2018 it drops back down. And relatively few new statutory provisions for the WRE were brought in when compared to the WRP, so they're very, very similar. One of the differences for WRE, the Wetland Reserve Easements, is reduces ownership requirement from 7 years. You had to own it for 7 years before you could apply, down to 24 months, which I think is a very, very good move. It authorizes a waiver process to allow the owner of CRP land established to trees that can go into WRE now. And there is no standalone 10-year restoration cost share agreements. That's been done away with. Now it's all 30-year easements or permanent easements, but no cost share only agreements anymore. Okay, with that, I got a few minutes if there's any questions for me.
Any questions for John on Farm Bill programs?
John, you mentioned the acre reduction for CSP. What does that mean to Nebraska? Does that mean less money?
Yeah, with the acre reduction from 10 to 7 million, that means less money, less acres that can be approved in the state. That means competition will be higher for what acres we have left. And
Competition nationwide, or is it Nebraska only?
I'm sorry?
Is the competition for those acres nationwide, or does Nebraska have certain acres that we have?
The competition it's nationwide, but each state is allocated a baseline beginning. So for instance, in Nebraska last year, we had 680,000 acres that was approved contracts for Nebraska applicants out of 10 million. And so this year it'll probably be a little bit less. That translated into 369 applications. And so again, more applications, the better your ranking has to be to get funded. Thanks.
Any other questions for John?
Okay, thank you.